I'm in a meeting. Don't call again.
My husband yelled at me when I tried to inform him about my critically ill father-in-law. He hung up without even listening to me, treating me with disdain. Later, I wondered where he could be since he wasn't answering any calls. In truth, I had a pretty good idea. Maybe I'll keep quiet about the $7 million inheritance issue, I thought. So, as per his wish, I decided not to contact him again. But I also devised an elaborate plan to make him regret his reckless behavior. I'm Scarlett, 40 years old at the time. I'd been married to my husband, Oliver, for 15 years. My father-in-law sighed and apologized, saying,
"My son can be troublesome, Scarlett."
I replied, "No worries." I smiled awkwardly at my apologetic father-in-law. We were living with my father-in-law and I had a close enough relationship to have tea with him. However, during that time, my husband had been unusually cold toward me lately. The reason? He had an affair, and my father-in-law knew it, always looking sorry whenever something happened. Still, my attachment to my father-in-law made divorce a difficult decision. I could only hope that Oliver would change his ways. But his behavior worsened day by day, and eventually, he stopped hiding his infidelity.
Oliver, enough is enough. Don't you feel sorry for Scarlett?
No matter how much my father-in-law scolded him, my husband just brushed it off. In fact, he even puffed up his chest with confidence.
Women are drawn to me because I'm overflowing with masculine charm.
My father-in-law and I were utterly exasperated by his attitude. What masculine charm? I retorted. Women are probably flocking to you because of your money. And it was true. Oliver flaunted his wealth, attracting women and living a lavish lifestyle. Apparently, he was juggling multiple affairs.
Scarlett, I'm truly sorry. My excess wealth turned Oliver into a terrible son.
When we married, Oliver wasn't like this. He worked diligently, came straight home after work, a model husband. But around our 12th anniversary, everything changed. My father-in-law's serious illness prompted him to reveal all his previously hidden assets, and Oliver's eyes gleamed with greed. Since he'd inherited anyway, he started dipping into that fortune. My frail father-in-law couldn't reprimand Oliver, and time slipped away. Seeing my father-in-law blame himself in our private moments was heartbreaking. "Oliver, you shouldn't upset your dad." I finally couldn't take it anymore and scolded my husband. But he just glared at me and said,
"What? Are you jealous?"
Confused by his unexpected words, I stammered, "What are you talking about?" His response was arrogant.
"You're small-minded for being jealous just because other women find me attractive."
I didn't know how to react. Ignoring my distress, Oliver continued with his haughty attitude.
"Well, if you don't want me to abandon you, you better work on your appeal. Being a 40-year-old hag might make it tough, though."
Furious, I retorted, "What? That's rude. You're 43 too." But Oliver just laughed and declared,
"Well, I'm off on a date with another girl."
He walked out, leaving me standing there alone. One fateful day during those difficult times, my father-in-law collapsed. "Dad, please hold on," I pleaded as the ambulance rushed him to the hospital. By then, he was already in critical condition. "I need to contact Oliver," I thought urgently. The doctor warned that my father-in-law's condition was precarious, and the possibility of him passing away loomed. It felt heartbreaking not to be there for his final moments, even with a son like Oliver. I called my husband's number repeatedly, but he didn't answer. Finally, on the 5th attempt, he picked up. "Hello, Oliver? It's an emergency." His response was harsh.
Stop bothering me. Don't call again.
I was startled by my husband's sudden shouting. "Wait. It's really urgent. Your dad collapsed."
I'm in a meeting. Don't contact me again.
But in the background, I heard a woman's laughter. "Ah. He's still cheating," I realized. Holding the disconnected phone, I stood in the hospital corridor, a mix of anger and sadness. Although Oliver hadn't listened to my words, he must have sensed the urgency. Still, he dismissed me. I felt a mix of anger and sadness toward him for his attitude. I wanted to discuss the $7 million inheritance from Dad. I had wanted to say, but I decided against it. Eventually, my father-in-law passed away peacefully. Oliver never returned home after that day, ignoring all attempts at communication. So, I arranged the funeral alone, honoring his wish to cut ties completely. I can't take this anymore, I thought. I couldn't forgive Oliver for neglecting his own father. From then on, revenge consumed my thoughts. After my father-in-law's departure, Oliver immersed himself in his affair partner's life, never stepping foot in our home again. He finally showed up at our home 2 months after my father-in-law's funeral.
What? Dad passed away? I didn't hear about it. Why bother telling me?
When your dad collapsed, I called you immediately. Didn't you realize it was an urgent matter? Besides, you were the one who abruptly hung up.
Still, why call again?
I tried multiple times. And you were the one who said not to contact you again. Ignoring my rebuttal, my husband scratched his head uncomfortably. Fine. These are the inheritance documents you're entitled to. Please sign here.
Wow, this is impressive. I can receive such a large sum?
Yes, you'll get $70,000, and I'll receive other assets.
Well, do whatever you want. Easy money.
Without listening to any explanations, he gleefully signed the documents.
Dad would be pleased that I'm putting this $70,000 to good use.
I clenched my fist at his words but remained silent. In truth, my revenge had already begun at that moment. Ecstatic over the $70,000, my husband quit his job and lived it up with his affair partner, not returning home for about a year. During that time, I didn't contact him or pursue a divorce. And a year later, I mailed divorce papers and a copy of my father-in-law's will to Oliver. Almost immediately, he panicked and called me.
Hey! What's this will about? Is it true you inherited $7 million from Dad?
So what if it is?
I had no idea. Let's talk about this.
I suggested meeting at a cafe for our discussion. When I arrived, Oliver's face was flushed with anger.
Damn it! You're mocking me.
Ignoring his rage, I maintained a businesslike demeanor. This is your dad's will. It ensures I receive the $7 million inheritance.
Why not me? You probably used some charm on Dad.
Oliver hurled baseless accusations, but I met his gaze head-on. His anger wavered momentarily. I tried to discuss this with you multiple times, but you were always too busy with meetings. I apologize. My sarcasm seemed to hit home. Oliver trembled, still red-faced.
This can't be valid. As his son, I have rightful inheritance rights, It's the law.
Well, it doesn't work that way. Did you know you have 1 year from learning about my full inheritance to claim your share? It's also legally binding.
I didn't know. Statutes of limitations even matter.
Remember when I explained this while giving you the $70,000? You didn't listen. Oliver's eyes widened in realization. Yes, when I handed him the $70,000, I'd also explained that I'd inherit additional assets. But he'd been blinded by the immediate windfall, hastily signed without listening. For a year, I'd endured, not divorcing or revealing my plan. Now, Oliver had overlooked $7 million for the sake of $70,000. With a smile, I told my husband, I'll start a new life using my father-in-law's inheritance. And you? Never contact me again. His face turned pale. Desperate, he stammered.
Wait. I actually have debts.
I retorted. I figured. You're the type to create debts with reckless spending. A thoughtless, careless man like this couldn't possibly get away with just $70,000. Suddenly, Oliver sat on the cafe floor, clinging to me. Other patrons stared at the bizarre scene.
Forgive me. I was wrong.
He pleaded. I shot back. Can you stop embarrassing me? It's like I'm the villain here. He begged.
Please, let's reconcile. Let's start over.
I taunted. Weren't you repulsed by an old hag like me? I didn't hold back, thrusting verbal daggers at him. This moment was the culmination of my year-long plan. My husband looked up at me with tears in his eyes, his voice trembling.
I have to keep the girls happy. They all want jewelry or designer bags.
Why should I pay for gifts for your affair partner? I have nothing to do with it.
Don't say that.
As Oliver sat on the cafe floor, gazing at the sky, he suddenly brightened up.
You should surround yourself with men too.
Me?
Sure, what was it called? A reverse harem. With $7 million, you'll have your pick of handsome young men.
At that moment, I raised my hand and slapped him hard. The satisfying sound echoed through the cafe as his cheek turned red and swollen. Other customers and staff froze at the noise. Oliver stared at me in shock, holding his cheek. Enough with mocking people. I grabbed his collar and shook him vigorously. Meanwhile, my husband seemed genuinely puzzled by my anger.
I thought it was a good idea.
His words made me realize that our values were fundamentally different. Unbelievable. Just leave already. And you're being filmed, you know? My husband's face turned pale.
Hey! Don't film me without permission. Who gave you the right?
Oliver, spitting with rage, confronted the cafe customer recording him on their smartphone. Apparently, a YouTuber happened to be there, completely unfazed by my husband's shouting. They continued filming, laughing and commenting, "Wow, this guy's intense." When I checked YouTube, it seemed they were live streaming, with a close-up of my furious husband's face. Viewers flooded the chat with messages like "what a jerk" and "hang in there, wife." Encouraged by their support, I steeled myself. I wasn't wrong. I decided to face my husband again. But he remained seated on the cafe floor, determined not to move until I handed over the $7 million inheritance. Of course, I couldn't part with the precious legacy from my father-in-law. As I pondered my next move, my husband suddenly screamed.
Why did you find my location?
Suddenly, Oliver was surrounded by men in black suits. Apparently, Oliver had accumulated so much debt that even the denizens of the underworld were after him for money. It's probably because of the live stream on YouTube, I said calmly, sipping my coffee.
Help me. With your $7 million, I can pay off my debts. Let's live happily together.
His life hung by a thread, like a candle about to be extinguished. Wait. First, you need to sign the divorce papers, I replied.
If I sign, will you help me?
Hard to say until you sign the divorce papers, I teased. He hastily signed the papers and handed them to me.
This should save me, right?
Smiling, I accepted the papers. Who said anything about saving you? Just go to hell. As Oliver screamed and struggled, the men in black bound him and carried him away. Finally, my long battle is over. I feel exhausted. As I sat there sipping my coffee, applause erupted in the cafe. Well done. Thank you, the customers and staff cheered. When I stood up, smiling and nodding, the applause grew even louder. And so, my marriage with Oliver came to an end. After inheriting a substantial fortune, I made sure to claim $14,000 each from my ex-husband and his affair partner as compensation. It seems the affair partner sought help from her parents, while Oliver continued accumulating debt. Fortunately, I received the full amount. As for Oliver, he was abandoned by his affair partner and now lives alone in a run-down apartment. He's constantly fearful of debt collectors. But it's all self-inflicted. On the other hand, thanks to my father-in-law's inheritance, I've gained financial freedom. I'm looking forward to a new life and taking things slowly.
How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time in the next video.